Hey guys, welcome back to another video. This video we're going to be installing a 6.4 Hemi and a 8 HP 70 into a 2008 Jeep Wrangler. I'm going to go through all the steps it takes to installing this motor and transmission using a kit from Jeep Speed Shop. But first, let's go visit Jeep Speed Shop and see where the magic happens.
Quick disclaimer, I'm not a professional mechanic. The steps and advice I give in this video are to be followed at your own risk. I will not be held responsible or liable if you do not do your own research before performing any task or maintenance on your vehicle. The torque specs posted in this video are what I found online, but viewers beware, there are many sources of different specs. Also, I'm not an employee of Jeep Speed Shop. I'm just a firm supporter of a great company and close community.
Guys, we are here in California visiting Jeep Speed Shop. Let's check out their shop, see what they're working on. This is where the magic happens. All right, let's say hi to Todd and Liz for the channel. And then we have Dustin.
Yeah.
And this is where all the magic happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Liz said I could.
So if it's a mess in here, it's all Liz's fault.
Yeah.
Always my fault.
Liz, anything you want to say to the camera, Liz, because you're never on the camera. Oh, man.
No.
This is nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
Dustin, you want to say anything to the camera?
Yeah.
Build your Jeep right.
Build your Jeep right.
Yes.
All right.
Follow
Leave the wiring
directions.
alone.
Oh, no, hey, Howard, your Jeep needs a V8. Yeah.
they all
Come
need
Jeep,
V8.
Jeep Speed Shop.
That's it.
They need a V8 or even the 8-speed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
If you got 3.6, you need an 8-speed.
You need an 8-speed. That definitely makes a huge difference. So
Sure does.
definitely come visit Jeep Speed Shop here. Come to Cotati, California and visit Jeep Speed Shop.
That's it.
Yep. All right. Definitely a nice visit with Jeep Speed Shop, but let's get back to business. We're going to be installing this 6.4 into this 2008 Jeep Wrangler, and I am going to go through all of the steps that it takes to install this motor and all of the steps it takes to install the 8 HP 70. And I'll also go over a couple of the key differences between working on a 3.8 Wrangler and the 3.6 Wrangler. So let's get to it. We will start with the removal of the 3.8 liter. I won't get into too much detail of the removal, but I'll point out a few important steps. Here we are getting ready to pull out the 3.8 liter engine. Make sure you take out the battery box. You're gonna want to remove all these little hoses for the power steering lines. Take off the front grille, radiator. And Eric is down here getting ready to pull out the transfer case. And this Jeep has the cross member that holds the lower control arms. So that'll make things a little bit more difficult, but it won't be too bad. I recommend pulling the transfer case first and then pulling the motor and transmission as one assembly. This would be similar for the NAG 1 and the 3.6 liter. So we are getting ready to pull the 3.8. Got a ratchet strap on the ends of each exhaust manifold. Here, Eric is unbolting the motor mounts from the actual block. That way it clears the power steering pump easier. And then I've got a jack holding up the back of the transmission because we can't remove this cross member right now. And now it's time to carefully remove the motor. Slowly looking for anything that's still plugged in. Make sure you do that so you don't rip any wires or hoses. And before you start this project, you'll want to take your Jeep to a shop to have your AC system evacuated. We found it was easier to lift the motor and push the Jeep backward since we're working with limited space. Just like that, 3.8 is out. Next step we need to do is cut out these motor mounts. We are doing the weld-in motor mounts. If you're doing the bolt-in ones, you leave these in here and they'll bolt right in. We saved a few dollars by doing the actual weld-in ones. Also, we need to relocate the steering shaft bearing. It ends up getting moved over closer to the brake booster. On the 11 to 18s, the bolts or the studs stick out so you can do all the work in the outside. On the 07s to 10s, you have to actually unbolt it from the inside. This is the bearing from the inside. You need to unbolt those two bolts. You can remove this bolt for the actual shaft, remove it out of there. Then you will remove the bearing and do the grinding that you need to do. And it'll pull out my way. Just like that, steering shaft is out. Now we need to like that so we can look here and know how much we need to grind out right there. Draw a little marker right there. we got the new steering bearing bracket in there. We're gonna have to clearance it out just a little bit on the brake booster. It's gonna touch right there.
It's because it's a J8 booster.
That's why. It's a little bit bigger brake booster than normal.
What's that? One done.
I'm done.
And there it is. Just got to clean them up and get the new ones welded in.
Then after cutting off the motor mounts, you can grind this all nice and flat. That way you can fit on the new motor mounts. Alright, got these motor mounts tacked in. This is the passenger side. You can tell because it's got these two holes on the top. And then for mounting it to the Hemi, you have this slot in the frame. You want the actual whole mount to be the forward position and the slot to be on the right side. You can see right like that. And then on the driver side, it's got the two slots in the bottom. For the Hemi, it'll be the left slot. LS, you'll use the right slot. It would slide the whole mount back if you're using the LS. But for the Hemi, it's slid forward and lines up with this slot in the frame. We got that tacked in. We're going to test fit the motor and then we'll fully weld them in. So here we've got the 6.4 Hemi that we're going to be getting ready to prep. We'll take off the exhaust manifolds, the motor mounts. I'm going to take off this AC compressor. This one should be able to be used with the Jeep Speed Shop kit. It does not have the extra plug in the rear, so this should be compatible. We'll just have to grind off part of this AC compressor bracket, that way it fits next to the power steering box. Usually we'll use a short bolt, have a little bit of a nub here and a short bolt to bolt that onto. And then we will take off the intake manifold. That makes it a little bit safer for putting in the Jeep. And then after that, we will leave the motor in the Jeep and change the oil pan out. We don't have a motor stand, so when we're changing the oil pan in the pickup tube, we're gonna put the motor inside the motor mounts in the frame. That way it's secure when we're tightening the crankshaft bearing cap bolts. Those do take a lot of torque to tighten down. So here we have the motor mounts here, used for the weld-in motor mounts. The orientation on the driver's side of the motor, you'll have the longer motor mount and it's going to be aiming downwards. On the passenger side, it'll be the shorter motor mount and that will also be aiming downwards. And I will post all the part numbers in the video description. These will get tightened to 45 foot-pounds. Alright, we are getting ready to test fit the motor in here. We got the intake off, that way we can mount it to the corner of each head. These are the Grand Cherokee exhaust manifolds. We're going to see if those work. We are just getting ready to lower it down into the motor mounts. This is our first test fit. We got the motor sitting in here for the first time on its own weight. We tried the Grand Cherokee 6.4 exhaust manifolds, and these guys will not work. But Eric bought some
2007 300 SRT 6.1.
Okay, 2007 from a 6.1.
It looks like we shouldn't have an issue if we cut the flanges off of the header,
Okay,
similar
yep.
to what you did in your videos.
This is a 3-link long arm. We'll cut these flanges off. We'll cut these flanges off here, weld some tube to angle it, and then put a 3-inch V-band. And then this third upper link, we'll cut this off, still cut these flanges off, and then weld on some tube. And that will be the direction that we end up going. We're using the top engine mounts, and then we will change out this oil pan to a steel pan. Still need to change the oil filter adapter. So let's keep on putting it together. Here we are prepping the Hemi, doing the rear main seal. It'd be easy to change it since it's out of the Jeep. So to remove the flex plate and then remove the actual rear main seal cover. And I will put torque specs for reinstalling this. There's an actual torque sequence for reinstalling this rear main seal. And it gets torqued down to 132 inch-pounds. When installing, make sure you lube up the crankshaft where the seal touches. And this is also easier with the oil pan removed. Use at least blue Loctite for these bolts, and these get torqued down to 70 foot-pounds. Here we are taking off this oil cooler. That way we can add this oil filter adapter, because if the oil filter comes down to here, that'll likely hit the upper control arm. Make sure you order 3 new bolts when you purchase this, and also this seal. But with the aluminum oil pan, you can actually use these bolts for the oil filter adapter. They fit right in there. And we're not going to be using this sensor that is on here. And it's a big Allen key right in the center.
There it is.
Ooh.
It's a little dirty. It's gonna leak. Oh, there it is.
And we need to bolt on the new piece right there. And then with 13 and newer motors, you'll need to replace the crankshaft sensor. And then since this is a 6.4, it had the aluminum oil pan. And then if you got a 5.7 that came out of a car, you would also have this aluminum oil pan. You need to change this out to a rear sump oil pan, and then you also need to change out your pickup tube. So we will show you how to do that next. And since we don't have an engine stand, we'll just change the oil pickup tube once it's sitting in the frame. We got the motor in for its final installation. And this is why you need to get the oil filter adapter, because it would be hitting this upper control arm right here. Alright, so whenever you get a Hemi from a car, it's going to have the aluminum oil pan, and it's going to have the front sump on here. So then you need to actually change it out for the rear sump. But in doing that, you have to change out the actual crank bolts, because you got to move this bolt over to, I believe, here. So you have to actually take that out, and then you're going to have to change out a couple of the bolts. I just always order a total of 4 bolts, 3 of them without the actual stud, 1 with the stud because you're replacing it. And you don't want to reuse these bolts, you want to order brand new ones. There's a specific sequence, but the actual torque specs will be 10 foot-pounds, and then 20 foot-pounds, and then 90 degrees. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. And the purpose of doing all this is to remove the stud from here and place it here. So that is why you need 4 new bolts, because you have to replace both bolts on each bearing cap, or at least it is recommended. And again, you torque these down to 10 foot-pounds and then 20 foot-pounds and then 90 degrees. And make sure you tighten down the bearing cap bolts evenly. Don't torque down one fully without starting to torque down the other one. All right, so this is the rear sump. Make sure you put a new gasket on here. It usually comes with the actual oil pan gasket. And the oil pan gasket gets put on before the oil pickup tube gets installed. Also make sure, because this had the aluminum oil pan, the actual dipstick was in the side of the oil pan like this. But now that we got the metal oil pan, the dipstick will go into the side of the block right here. So you need to stick a punch from the inside of the motor and tap this little cap out. Just like that. And then you can put the dipstick in and secure it with the bolt here. 53 inch-pounds. Go ahead and slide the other part into it. And the oil pickup tube gets torqued down to 250 inch-pounds or 28 Newton meters. Now we put the actual metal oil pan on. These bolts get torqued down to 105 inch-pounds, and there is a specific torquing sequence, starting in the middle and working your way out. And here's a few things to come in the next couple of videos in this V8 swap series. This is the part that you need to be extra careful with. And I like to install everything with the intake manifold removed. So now we are installing the power steering pump here. Let her rip.